The Great Plains of Mongolia, home to a surprising feline, the Pallas cat. They have adapted to all seasons in this sparse, treeless wilderness. And despite challenges, they rear their young, feeding themselves and their growing family with remarkable ingenuity. It takes a very special kind of cat to thrive here. Eastern Mongolia, a continuous expanse of rolling grassland and semi-desert. There are no trees here. Instead, the landscape is dotted with domestic herds. For centuries, locals here have followed their sheep and goats as they graze. Living in assembled houses called gaz, these people are nomadic and travel with their animals in search of good quality pasture. There are wild herds here too. Mongolian gazelle. Their seasonal migrations cover a distance of over 1,000 kilometers. Above them, eagles soar. Golden eagles and steppe eagles. While golden eagles remain in Mongolia throughout the year, steppe eagles migrate here in the spring to breed. Both hunt the animals that live on these grasslands, like these Mongolian gerbils. Brant's voles and Dorian ground squirrels. There are more than 30 species of small mammal living off the plains. Rich pickings for a grassland predator, like the Pallas cat. The end of November, winter in Mongolia, where temperatures frequently plummet to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Sukbata province is a stronghold for Pallas cats in eastern Mongolia. And nomads have reported several sightings. There's something moving in the snowfield. A red fox, making the most of a break in the blizzard. Red foxes must hunt even on the coldest of days. Pallas cats travel within a range of 100 square kilometers. But biologist Otkombaya Bartagal, or Oggy, is an expert when it comes to finding Pallas cats. Oggy and the crew have chosen this boulder field to begin their search. In winter, Pallas cats often hide themselves between rocks or in ground cavities. Holes dug by foxes or marmots provide ideal resting spots. They are often 10 degrees warmer than outside. Footprints in the snow suggest they're in the right area.
Энэ манууд яг эндээс ингэж гарч ирсэн байна. Тэнгүүд ийш нэг ингэ өсөрсөн байна. Буусан. Одоо ийшээ лан энд лан гэсэн. Би сая дээгүүр гарчлаа.
If they were hunting here, they must still be nearby. New footprints. Nestled deep inside a cavity. A Pallas cat with a fierce stare. Oggy pulls it out carefully to check its health. This is a fully grown adult. It's aggressive, just like a wild cat should be. At 48 centimeters from nose to rear, it's similar in size to a domestic cat, but it's stockier with a thick layer of fat.
Very fat.
Making it just to rear. He flattens and becomes motionless, with his back and front legs stretched out and chin on the snow.
Тэр одоо зөвхөн өөрийгөө одоо дайсаа нутасаал одоо өнгөлн даллахсан нэг хэлбэр байна. Тэр үднээсээ л ерөнхийдөө тэр өөрийгөө хамгаалах аюулгүй байдал талаас нь ингэж харж явж байгаа л гэж боддог юм да.
On an open plain, there is nowhere to hide. Lying low and still is the most effective form of protection. The Pallas cat might be fierce, but it has enemies. Eagles are their biggest threat, but even foxes would hunt a Pallas cat given the opportunity. But the cat has a clever hiding strategy. An eagle passing overhead would never know this cat wasn't a rock. While most cats have triangular ears on top of their heads, the flat ear position of the Pallas cat allows them to blend in, just like a smooth boulder. It's the ultimate depiction of stealth. Its eyes are another special feature. A Pallas cat's eyes are placed relatively high up on a small forehead, allowing them to see better as snow builds up around them. Once the Pallas cat decides to become a rock, it may not move for a very long time. After a time, and when it is deemed safe, he begins a low, slow crawl. When spring arrives on the Mongolian plains, the snow melts, but the grass remains yellow. There will be no rain here until the end of the summer. By July, the ground is dry and dusty. The temperature reaches nearly 40 degrees Celsius. Since midwinter, the temperature has risen by 70 degrees. Demoiselle cranes have migrated across the Himalayas from India and Nepal to breed here. They gather around the now scarce pools of water to avoid overheating. Golden eagles must protect their chicks from the sun. But the Mongolian gazelle do not have the luxury of shade. They must continue their journey. And some won't make it. The research team has been following the Pallas cats using radio telemetry. And they picked up a signal. Even in the distance, the aerial on the collar gives it away. Having shed almost half of its weight since the winter, it now has a distinctly different shape. The dense layers of fur and fat are gone, enabling it to survive the extreme heat of the summer. But it still uses the same slow stalking movements as it did in winter. Staying close to the ground to avoid detection. Augie and the team continue their search for Pallas cats. And they make an exciting discovery. Nestled between the boulders are 4 kittens. Palace kittens are usually born in late spring and raised in the boulder fields of the Mongolian plains. The rocks provide much needed shade, as well as keeping them hidden from predators. There are more kittens in dens nearby. Each litter has between 3 and 5. They seem to know that they must stay still and quiet. But at least there's no worry of being spotted by eagles in here. The day is long during a Mongolian summer. The sun doesn't set until 9 p.m. The team decides to stay and watch the boulders for signs of life. This kitten is around 2 months old. As the evening air cools, more kittens cautiously emerge. Staying close to the rocks at first, then getting a little more adventurous. Once they're accustomed to their surroundings, they can't stay quiet for long. This is kitten playtime. They are already showing traits of wildcat behavior. The tip of this kitten's tail waves with excitement. It's something the tails of adult Pallas cats do when targeting prey. For his sibling, however, it's an irresistible lure. As the light fades, the kittens tire. But hours later, they are awake again. Their mother has returned, giving them a welcome feed. They will suckle for 3 to 4 months in total. By the end of the summer, they will be weaned. From their regular observations, the team have been able to gather valuable information of the kitten's growth pattern. At 1 month old, they're able to leave the den to explore their surroundings, watched by their attentive mother. She's mid-molt, with her short summer coat coming through. She growls, sensing a potential threat. She won't take any chances. She reacts by carrying a kitten back to the den. By mid-July, a transformation is beginning to take place on the plains. The eagerly anticipated rains have arrived. And day by day, the grass gets greener. And flowers bloom. For Mongolia's nomadic people, who are spread out over the plains, summer is a time to come together and socialize. This is the festival of Naadam. The children race the horses over 20 kilometers. Horses are a way of life here, so it's fitting that they play a big part in the festival. It's the greatest honor to win with a horse your family has raised. Voles are making the most of the season's growth. They pop out from holes in the ground and scurry about, scanning for danger. But they are never far from a bolt hole. Small mammals are always on the lookout. And for good reason. Palace cats are ready to seize on a hunting opportunity. And the crew are on hand to capture the action. First, an adult female. She's moving carefully, looking for prey. But she has company. A kitten in tow. Ignoring her kitten, she moves ahead, fully focused on her prize. She appears to have spotted something in the distance. She adopts the familiar low stance as she approaches her target. The vole is now just meters ahead of her. And she still has the element of surprise. Success. With kittens to feed, as well as herself, hunting is a never-ending task. Then, the team captures something extraordinary. A Brandt's vole. The cat notices it, and it notices her. This time, there is no element of surprise. But she shakes the tip of her tail. And as if by magic, the vole is mesmerized. The vole has time to run, it doesn't move. She looks certain to make a kill. But at the crucial moment, her kitten bounds in. She clearly voices her disapproval. Inspired by the discovery, the film crew experiment with their own dummy palace cat tail. Just by waving the dummy tail, they have the attention of this vole. Not just one, but three. They are fixated on the swaying object. Oggy has an explanation.
Сүүлөө хөдлөв. Ерөнхийдөө эхлээд шууд ингээд зүгээр явж байхдаа л хөдлөж байгаа шүү дээ.
When a vole sees something unfamiliar, it stops moving to check if it's safe or not. A palace cat uses this opportunity to close in on its prey. The tail also has another use.
Тэрний анхаарал нь сарнаад нөгөө холгон зурагч нь хөдлөн шүү дээ. Гоцоогоор суудаг ч юм уу тийм ээ. Зогсоход нь ерөнхийдөө тэр амтныг харахын тулд л тэр.
A vole's nest has several entrances. And a palace cat can't always know which entrance hole to aim for. By shaking its tail, the cat stops the vole in its tracks for a short while to find out which entrance is used most often. Success. This mother, with her kitten, has caught 4 voles in 20 minutes. And she will pass on this technique to her young. One evening, the crew witness a mother cat and her 5 kittens traveling together. The family must move to a different location every few days. If they stay in the same spot, they could eventually run out of food. She repeatedly looks back to check she hasn't left them behind. The family may travel anything from 500 meters to 2 kilometers at a time. But with only so much rocky terrain to choose from, it's easy to unexpectedly bump into neighbors. Two families appear to have chosen the same spot. There are now 9 kittens in total. One of the kittens has decided to make a move straight towards the camera crew. Bravely, the kitten gets as close as 3 meters from the camera. Then, perhaps after sensing the crew's presence, it thinks better of it and turns to run. Its litter mates and newfound friends are eager to greet the kitten on return. The two families appear happy in each other's company for a while. It's the end of July. 5 kittens survey their surroundings. This litter is around 3 months old and still very much reliant on their mother's catches. So a short distance away, she spends all of her time catching voles. She waits by a hole in the ground. By rotating sideways, she momentarily disappears from sight with just enough time to grab her prey. Her kittens are practicing their own hunting skills. They've mastered the crawl. And the shake of the tail. Not quite. But it's not giving up. The side roll, just like Mum. Another miss. These two appear to be targeting the same prey. Moving off in front, the first kitten blows their cover and the vole bolts to safety. But the one behind has a stroke of luck. Watching Mum has paid off, and the kitten is rewarded with a catch. The siblings are becoming rivals when it comes to survival on the plains. But the kittens must learn to look out for danger themselves. A steppe eagle. The kittens swiftly take cover. But luckily for them, this eagle opts for the easier task of catching rodents. They will have to be cautious if they are to make it to adulthood. The kittens are becoming more independent by the day. But Mum's return still offers them comfort. They'll need to suckle a little while longer, despite becoming proficient hunters themselves. While the kittens turn their attention to milk, she remains alert. A month later, and there's a change in the family. When the kittens ask for milk, the mother ignores them. One of them begs for it, but again and again, she shakes them off. But it's not only the mother's behavior that has changed. This kitten is so focused on hunting practice, it doesn't notice when its mother moves away. Only 2 of the 5 kittens follow their mother that day. She doesn't wait for the others. The kittens are 3.5 months old. When they feel ready to leave, one by one, they'll get left behind. It's the end of August. A cold wind blows over the Mongolian plains. The grass has grown long and green. But summer is at its end. Augie and the team have picked up the radio telemetry signal from a young palace cat. It's one of 5 siblings that Augie's team had been monitoring. They left their mother very recently.
Мануулын ногоолонууд эндэх нь хэвдвэл хавар төрхийнхөө одоо нөгөө дараа төрснийхөө дараа нэг байдгийг тий. Тэгээд ерөнхийдөө томроод ирснийхээ дараа бие даасныхаа дараа бас нэг эндэх нь олон баггүй.
The team have radio collared 1 female and 1 male from the litter. Augie wants to check on their progress since leaving their mother. The young male is in this patch of grass. He's completely hidden. They catch up with him again, hiding between some boulders. Then they spot the female. She takes the first opportunity she can to run. She's no longer a carefree kitten. She's cautious, just like her mother was. The team examined the area carefully to look for the remaining siblings. They find another within a 2-kilometer radius. A young female between the rocks. And another young male. All 4 appear healthy. there's one missing. The team couldn't find the last young female that day. They turned their attention to finding the mother. And discover something unexpected. They find her in the hills, 20 kilometers away from her kittens. Hidden in a patch of grass. And there's something different about this terrain. There are no rock crevices to hide in.
Ерөнхийдөө одоо би даалгаад л өөрсдөө зулцгнуудынхаа одоо тэгэл өдрөө хөөч үрэлж ус үүрнийхээ ойролцоо энд нь идэж болох болгоно ихтэй нуугт горчин сайтай тийм учраас тэнтэй үлдээгээд өөрөө ингээд зайлж холдоод өөрийнхөө одоо энэ өөрийнх нь эзэмшил нутаг нь одоо ийм л том радиустай байна л гэсэн үг тийм.
Once separated, family members become rivals. So the mother has sacrificed her territory to make it easier for her young to survive. It has been almost 3 weeks since the kittens left their mother. And Oggy and the team catch up with a young cat who seems to have mastered the art of survival alone. A young, healthy-looking male appears from between the rocks. After scanning his surroundings, he begins to stalk. Did he sense danger? He ducks down. After a pause, he begins again. In the blink of an eye, he pounces, using the rotation technique his mother taught him. Now on to the next. Success again. The next one takes a little longer. But he's persistent. He senses something from behind. And he's rewarded. He makes 3 catches in 40 minutes. They will be consumed and stored as fat in preparation for winter. Using hunting skills passed down from his mother, this young male is thriving all on his own. He has shown Oggy that he is a skilled hunter. Oggy decides to remove his radio collar before winter arrives.
За ихийнх нь мэндийг хүргэж. Ихийнх нь мэндийг дамжуулцгаа. Тэ. Болгоомжтой байгаарай, бүрэгдээс хол байгаарай гэсэн. Бүргэд ихтэй газраар бүү яваарай.
But there is something bothering Oggy. He hasn't been able to find the fifth young female. Then, one day, they unexpectedly come across her. Oggy thinks the young female was attacked by a steppe eagle. Only 30% of young cats reach a year old. And there is no guarantee that the others will survive the winter. By the end of November, the plains are covered in snow once more. Oggy and the team continue with their research. They find a hole in the ground. And a young male is nearby. His fur is long and dense. He has a thick layer of fat. And he is aggressive. He has everything he needs to make it through to spring. Through 4 seasons, the palace cats have demonstrated hunting skills like no other. It takes a special kind of cat to survive the extremes of the Mongolian wilderness. The palace cat is nothing if not resilient, but it takes more than hardiness to thrive here. As aggressive predators, these cats have passed down skills from mother to kitten, seen in no other species of feline. Yet they must be cautious enough to avoid becoming prey themselves. They are the true masters of the Mongolian plains.
Australia. A secluded island continent with an abundance of creatures found nowhere else in the world. Among them, many species of animals with pouches, known as marsupials. One shares a common ancestor with the koala, but is far less widely known. Meet the wombats. With their thick-set, low-slung bodies, wombats look like small bears. But these slow-moving and solitary creatures are elusive burrow dwellers, whose best form of defense is their backside. They live in a world where night is their day, poop is cubed, and looking for a place to sleep provokes some sudden flashes of temper. This is the secret life of the wombat. Close to the cool highlands of the Snowy Mountains in southeast Australia lies a secret world. Within these sun-dappled groves live a group of very special creatures. Benny is just one of the many bare-nosed or common wombats living here. He's been named by the conservationists who protect and observe this area, known as Wombat Wood. The wombats here share this expanse of trees and dense foliage, thriving on the temperate climate and moist habitat. The wood is a place of peaceful refuge. And for any wombat, the safest place of all is his burrow. There are around 100 burrows in Wombat Wood, where the wombats will sleep during the warmth of the day. Wombats are some of the largest burrowing mammals in the world. They like to tunnel into areas of uncovered earth, beneath the roots of trees, or under the sides of rocks. While a burrow usually only has one main entrance, underground there are tunnels up to 3 meters long. These open into cool chambers where the wombats snooze. Millie is unable to regulate her body temperature when the outside is over 25 degrees Celsius. So, like any wombat, she'll stay in her cool subterranean sanctuary until the temperature drops in the late afternoon. The lack of oxygen in a burrow, combined with a slow metabolism, will keep Millie sleepy. Wombats can sometimes stay in their burrows for as long as 19 hours at a time. Only once the outside temperatures match the cooler conditions of her burrow will Millie emerge. Millie is behaving cautiously and comes out backwards, presenting her toughest side to any potential predator, such as a fox or dingo. Her rear end is actually her best defense. She has a tiny concealed tail, and her rump is fortified with a solid cartilage plate and skin up to 1 centimeter thick. which acts as protection against a bite. If need be, Millie can barricade the burrow by jamming her back against the roof, potentially trapping and suffocating a predator against the walls. Once she's emerged, Millie remains vigilant at the burrow entrance until she's sure it's safe to move. Meanwhile, Benny is a more confident wombat and wastes no time in emerging face first from his burrow set under a tree trunk. Wombats come in varying shades of grey and brown, but Benny is distinctively dark. At 5 years old, he's also one of the most assertive males in Wombat Wood. As mostly solitary animals, wombats don't have a clearly defined social hierarchy. But Benny may fight over food or mates, and the battle scars on his right leg point to past run-ins with other males. He's heading straight for foraging. Benny has a classic wombat's heavy gait. His legs are short and his feet are plantigrade, meaning he walks with his whole foot flat on the ground. Typical of an animal that walks more than it runs. His back feet have 2 fused digits and a clawless stub, which are used both for digging and scratching off dust. Wombats can take their time heading out to forage, sniffing the air and taking in the sounds of the wood, often waiting near the burrow entrance for a while. Millie's eyesight is poor as she spends so much of her time in the dark, so she'll rely on her other senses to check for predators. Millie's ears set on the side of her head are well placed to collect sound efficiently. But above all, she'll rely on her sense of smell. She has a keen olfactory system, and the openings of her nostrils and nasal passages are both extremely large. Once she's reassured of her safety, Millie moves away from the burrow. Sniffing as she goes, Millie starts to venture further. Benny heads towards the open pastures at the edge of the wood where he can feed. This is part of the area where he lives, travels, feeds and scratches, known as a home range. A wombat's home range can cover as much as 25 hectares, but if there are good places to burrow and plenty of grass, it can be a lot smaller, and it will also overlap with lots of other wombats. He may not care to interact with them, but Benny will be familiar with the wombats that share his home range, and he'll know if there's an intruder on his patch. Male wombats wombats may not fight over territory, but they will compete over mating or the best feeding spots. Older male Benny likes to check out who's been around. Other wombats will have left him messages with their droppings or scats. And then it's his turn to leave a calling card, both for other male wombats and to let the ladies know he dropped by. Wombat poop is unusual. It's very dry due to their fibrous diet and cube-shaped. Benny can lay up to 100 compact pellets a night using special bones in his backside to form the scats into cubes. The shape helps them stay in position and not roll away. It's likely that Benny's cuboid communication gives other wombats information on how big he is, his age and breeding condition, and may warn other wombats not to feed in his preferred spots. While younger, less assertive males will leave their offerings in a more concealed setting, a dominant wombat like Benny will make sure his superior scats are left in prominent places so they can't be missed. Because his sense of smell is so much better than his eyesight, his scats may also serve as landmarks so he can smell where he's been. Once upon a time, Ken would have asserted himself by moving all around the wood to lay droppings. At around 35 kilos, he's a large wombat, and his ragged ears suggest he hasn't always led a quiet life. But now, at 15 years of age, he's retired from mating and lives right on the edge of his old home range. A wombat can live as long as 20 years. He likes to check out who might be near his burrow. But mostly, he spends his time foraging and scratching. Scratching is a form of grooming. He won't lick his fur like other mammals. Instead, he'll scratch the dust off after sleeping in his earthy burrow. He can reach most parts of his body with his front or hind paws. And rubbing against a branch or tree trunk is always popular. As a herbivore forager, Benny's in search of a variety of grasses, moss and tree bark. He's happy eating tough, fibrous plants, difficult to eat and to digest. Benny's teeth are tailored to match his diet. They are rootless and never stop growing, so they won't be worn away by constant grinding. He can also use his sharp claws to dig up roots and his long incisors to bite through them whole. Digesting tough grasses also means that Benny's metabolism is slow, particularly when resting for long periods in the burrow. It can take him between 8 and 14 days to fully digest, which can be useful when food and water are scarce. Benny moves very slowly around the wood. He's constantly cautious, smelling warily as he goes. A whiff of anything unfamiliar will put him on his guard. And if he's uncertain or something startles him, he reacts at surprising speed. Wombats may be ponderous and slow movers, but when they need to, they can run. They can accelerate up to 40 kilometers an hour in seconds and keep it up for short distances, usually to head to the safety of a nearby burrow. While wombats may have a home range, they don't depend on using the same burrow each day. If a wombat needs a place of refuge or a bed for the night, he will often head to the closest place he can find. Teenage wombat Alabama has currently bagged one of the best burrows in the area. It's well positioned in the roots of a tree in the middle of the wood and has a wide entrance with plenty of cover. Alabama has distinctive front teeth. But that's not the only thing about him that's unusual. Even while burrow hopping, most wombats prefer to keep their burrows single occupancy. But Alabama has a roommate. His burrow buddy is another male, 3-year-old Boston. He's like Alabama's little brother. Alabama's always the first out of the burrow. He's the one to take the lead. And when he gives the go-ahead, the much more timid wombat joins him. But before they go anywhere, they must make sure the coast is clear. And that can take a while. The light is fading by the time they venture out. These boys have an unusually close friendship for wombats, and that may be due to their start in life. They were both found as orphans and were hand-reared and later returned to the wild together. Without mothers to give them the security and confidence a baby wombat would normally get, Alabama and Boston learned instead to rely on each other. Most wombats will feed no closer than 3 meters to another wombat. As darkness falls, wherever Alabama goes, Boston is close behind him. Under the cover of darkness, all is quiet in the wood. The the wombats find their way about, stopping to listen and smelling the air as they wander and forage through the night. They will generally avoid each other and use their sense of smell to keep their distance. As the first fingers of morning sunlight spread their way across the wood, it's time for the wombats to make their way back to their chosen burrows. Benny takes a last sniff of the morning air, then dives into the earthy burrow to settle down for his day's sleep. But while morning is bedtime for most wombats, one little wombat has got his clock upside down. Billy has recently weaned from his mum Millie and started living on his own. At just over a year old, he's young to have left his mother. This usually happens at around 18 months. Usually when young wombats leave home, they stay in their mother's home range. But Billy lives closer to the edge of the wood. He's still uncertain about independent life as an adult wombat. He prefers to come out of his burrow just as the other wombats are headed to bed. As a smaller, weaker wombat, Billy may be nervous of larger males and won't want to compete for feeding. So he emerges during daytime when he knows no other wombats will be about. He can take his time scratching, as he doesn't have far to go to feed. He's chosen a handy burrow with nutritious long grass growing near the entrance. Slowly, he braves moving further from the burrow. But he picks up the scent of something he doesn't like. Most likely another wombat, and it's enough to see him scurrying home. Meanwhile, Alabama stands guard at the entrance to his burrow to ensure that no one else will be joining him and Boston in their chosen spot while they sleep. Picking up the scent of another wombat, he ventures out. It's Millie, who's checking to see if the burrow is vacant. Alabama hurriedly moves back to block the entrance. Millie's raised paw shows she's uncertain. She doesn't dare to approach any further. But she's not the only one with designs on this centrally located burrow. Older female wombat Wilma has moved away from the burrow she last used in search of better foraging. Suddenly, she's startled by passing kangaroos. She heads straight for the nearest burrow. But it's Alabama's. Wombat aggression is often verbal and enough to warn off a would-be squatter. And Alabama emerges to make double sure she's gone. Only now can he and Boston settle down to sleep. Winter has arrived in Wombat Wood. Being so close to the snowy mountains means that snowfall is not unusual here. The wombats' burrows are well equipped to cope with lower temperatures. Even when they drop below zero above ground, burrow temperatures will not go below 12 degrees Celsius. And the wombat's coarse fur and thick skin means that they can come out to feed even when there's snow on the ground. It's late afternoon. Benny's making use of the cooler weather to do some burrow maintenance. Wombats are amazing earth movers. Benny's solid feet and long claws mean he can shift a metre of dirt in a few hours, walking backwards out of the burrow to bulldoze the earth clear. He will drag in vegetation, including grass, twigs and leaves, to line his resting chamber. And while he stands around 25 centimetres tall at the shoulders, he can compress himself to squash through a 10-centimetre gap if he needs to. He emerges, spattered with sandy soil. He's cautious today, constantly sniffing the air. Picking up the scent of something dangerous, Benny hesitates. But hunger must be getting the better of him. Even though the danger he got a whiff of hasn't gone away. A fox is smaller than a wombat. The average bare-nosed wombat usually weighs around 30 kilos, whereas a fox is no more than 14 kilos. But a fox can still attack and give a wombat a nasty bite. In winter, foxes also like to shelter in wombats' burrows, spreading parasitic mites which can make the wombats ill. The fox spots him and veers away. Benny may be one of the most assertive males in the wood, but even he decides it's best to wait this one out. Only when he's certain that there's no threat does he cautiously come out and start his day all over again. As spring approaches, the winter snow gives way to rain. Lots of it. And the wombats take cover. Over 400 millimetres falls in just 2 days. The worst rains in living memory. Most of the wombats stay sheltering in their burrows. Few are willing to come out for long. Only Wilma is prepared to ignore the downpour to forage vigorously for several hours. Her thick fur affords her some protection, and the cool, damp conditions mean that she can come out earlier in the day, as she won't be at risk of getting too hot. The drenched grass here is a good way for Wilma to take in water. Wombats rarely drink. They only do so when there's not enough moisture in the plants. But even being well equipped for the weather doesn't tempt the other wombats to come outside. Heavy rain like this can pose problems for the wombats. Several of the burrows are completely flooded, including Alabama and Boston's coveted under-tree spot. It's not uncommon for wombats to die this way. Rising water can trap them in their sleeping chambers. But while some of the wombats need to find new burrows, Wilma remains unconcerned. She's come to no harm during the extreme weather and is still picking her way around patches of waterlogged ground to feed. As the sun finally reappears, the other wombats slowly start to emerge. Millie has moved to a new burrow on the outskirts of the wood. She's been doing some earth moving. The deluge means lots of burrow maintenance is needed to clear out the mud now that the water has seeped away. Millie's broad head with its strong skull and her powerful shoulders and legs mean she can make short work of moving large amounts of soil. She can even push rocks out of the way with her head if she needs to. Her eyes, set in the side of her head, offer some protection from the earth when she's digging. Millie keenly sniffs the air. The rains have breathed new life into the wood, leaving a whole range of aromas for a wombat's powerful sense of smell to sample. The reappearance of Alabama and Boston on higher ground confirms that they managed to get out before their burrow flooded. They spend time feeding together before checking out a new burrow. As the evening approaches, something extraordinary happens. Boston comes out without Alabama. He's testing out his independence. But he doesn't last long. He only forages for a short time before making his way back to Alabama. The days are getting warmer now, but the return of the sun doesn't herald brighter prospects for little Billy. He's moved to a burrow even further out of the wood. And appears more disoriented. keeps foraging in the middle of the day, which is becoming increasingly risky. As the year rolls towards summer, this behaviour will make him more vulnerable. Unable to thermoregulate, he won't be able to cool himself easily if he gets too hot. And as the sun gets higher in the sky, it could be the heat that finally sends him dashing back to the burrow. Benny is also unharmed by the rains and is making up for lost time. Since his close shave with the fox, he's had the run of the wood. In one night, he can easily cover several kilometres. Wombats can spend longer above ground and extend their home ranges to take in more distant feeding areas before the temperatures rise during summer. After almost continuous grazing, Benny starts to eat more sporadically. Then he stops at a familiar spot to rest. Maybe he can stay here. But he doesn't head directly into the burrow. Only when he comes back out, it becomes clear what made Benny hesitate. Millie follows him out to let him know that he is not welcome here. When angered or threatened, a wombat can hiss or make a sound not unlike a pig's squeal. As an assertive male, Benny could be interested in mating Millie, but he retreats without a fight and is forced to set off in search of somewhere else to rest. He makes his way to another burrow. His sense of smell might tell him that there's someone home. But if he thinks he can force his way in, he's wrong. Once again, this visitor isn't welcome. And when the burrow owner appears, it's Alabama. And right behind him, Boston. But for Benny, it's going to be a long morning looking for a place he can call home. With most of the wombats safely in their burrows, all is quiet in Wombat Wood. Wherever they've chosen to rest, these solitary and elusive marsupial burrow dwellers can finally settle down for a day of slow digestion, energy preservation, and peaceful sleep. Australia, a secluded island continent with an abundance of creatures found nowhere else in the world. Among them, many species of animals with pouches, known as marsupials. Meet the wombats, chunky burrow dwellers, who carry their young in the pouch until they run out of room. Then raise their joeys in deep underground burrows. These slow-moving creatures are elusive and mostly solitary. But wombat breeding is a time of change, bringing out energy, aggression, and lots of play. And wherever Mum goes, Joey goes too. This is the secret life of the wombat. In a wood just outside Adelaide in the state of South Australia, female wombat Tara has come out of her burrow to forage. She's a southern hairy-nosed wombat, a variety with a pointed nose, adapted to live in the semi-arid conditions of the south. These wombats are increasingly rare. Tara's one of a small population here, which is named and protected by conservationists. It's late spring in Australia. Male wombat Birry is also out and about. But he's not thinking so much about foraging as finding a mate. And he's on Tara's trail. Birry picks up her scent. A female passes pheromones with her scats and urine about 4 to 5 days before she comes into estrus. She may lay her cube-shaped poop in prominent places to advertise to the male that she'll soon be ready to mate. Wombats usually steer clear of each other. And Tara lets out a warning hiss. Before she darts away. Birry tries again. This time he goes to sniff her cloaca, the posterior opening where her scent glands are found. but she turns on him. A female wombat can become hostile if she comes into estrus. But that doesn't dissuade Biri, and the chase is on. Wombats are usually slow-moving animals, but if they need to, they can accelerate in bursts of energy. Chasing is part of the mating process and is often ritualized, with the wombats moving in wide circles. The female may let the male catch up with her, then scamper off again. Tara's loud squeals appear to be warning Biri off, but he's undeterred. His goal is to grasp her hindquarters with his front legs and then roll her on her side to mount her. He catches up with her and bites her on the backside. A wombat's rump is well protected by thick skin and is usually its first line of defense. He tries to get her steady, but she kicks against him with her powerful back legs. She may not be fully in estrus yet. Until she is, she won't be receptive to mating. Biri keeps up the aggressive biting. The marks are visible on her fur. But Tara evades him, and she disappears into her burrow. It's thought that wombats first appeared in Australia about 2 million years before the arrival of humans. The most common variety is the bare-nosed or common wombat, but even these are now only found in areas on the southeast coast, in New South Wales, Victoria, and the island state of Tasmania at the bottom of Australia. Narrantapoo National Park lies in the northeast of Tasmania. And there's a large population of common wombats living here. Wombats are mostly nocturnal, preferring to come out in the evening when temperatures are lower than 20 degrees Celsius. Most wombat mating takes place under the cover of darkness. Here in Tasmania, lying further south, it's cool in later winter and early spring. The wombats come out by day to eat the coarse, high-fibre grasses on the large areas of open pasture. Several of the females here have young, known as joeys, or are in the early stages of pregnancy. Wombats are mostly solitary creatures and can get aggressive when others encroach on their space. Females who are protecting their young can be particularly aggressive. This wombat, whose burrow is on the edge of the pasture, already has a joey tucked away in her pouch and isn't letting anything come near her. Her rasping hiss is a firm warning not to approach. She has strong senses of smell and hearing and may be able to detect a threat that isn't immediately evident. baby she's protecting won't be visible for several months yet. Wombats are marsupials. Her tiny embryonic young was born after only about 22 days in uterus. At only 1.5 centimetres long, it will spend 8 months developing in the pouch before it makes its way into the world. The mother will remain on her guard throughout this time. Back near Adelaide, Biri has picked up the scent of a different female. Sylvie. He needs to establish whether she's in estrus. Hairy-nosed wombats breed when food is at its peak growth rates in spring, so the female will be able to supply milk to her young. In years of low rainfall, females may not come into estrus at all. The actual period of estrus is very short, as little as 13 hours. So Biri needs to be sure that the timing's right. Wombats only breed roughly every 2 years, so it's vital for the continuation of this rare variety that mating is successful. But Sylvie's not interested in playing chase. Wombats are among the world's largest tunnelers, and their usual form of defence in any situation is to run to the safety of the nearest burrow. If there isn't one at hand, they'll start to dig. Sylvie digs with the curved claws on her front paws to loosen the soil. Then uses her back legs to kick and push the soil away, while slowly moving backwards. A wombat female's pouch faces the rear. Inside, it's almost hairless and controlled by a powerful muscle which prevents any dirt from getting in as she digs. Wombats can shift a couple of metres of earth in a few hours, so it's not long before she has a place of her own. Southern hairy-nosed wombats will often mate inside the burrow, and Biri is keen to join Sylvie inside. But it takes a lot of work before a burrow's ready for occupation, and there's not enough space yet for Biri to join her. So he adopts a creative strategy and widens the burrow. But as he gets further in, she's still not interested. She reappears then makes a run for it. Biri seizes his chance and occupies her burrow to await her return. In Cooma, near to the Snowy Mountains in southeast Australia, an orphan 3-month-old wombat has been taken in by an animal rescue.
You know it's coming there, don't you?
It's not normally possible to see a wombat joey until it emerges from the pouch at around 8 months. But little Ash was rescued from the pouch after her mother was killed by a car. Weighing just 250 grams, being hand-reared is Ash's only hope of survival. No bigger than a human hand, she's still completely furless and her eyes have only been open a short time. She would have stayed attached to her mother's teat in the pouch until about 4 months, and so she needs to be fed every 2 hours. Her neck and chest muscles are already well developed. The newborns of marsupials need to use their front legs and claws to grasp their mother's fur as they move from the birth canal to the pouch at just 3 weeks. The soles of her feet are pink. The pads on a wombat's feet become roughened by age and wear. This skin becomes black and leathery soon after joeys leave the pouch at 8 months. When not feeding, she must be kept tightly wrapped in covers. Joeys can't control their own temperature because Mum's pouch would normally do that for them. A second baby wombat, Dan, was found a few days before Ash and is a little larger at 350 grams. He's around 4 months old. His claws are already long and sharp in preparation for a life of digging. And his ears are extremely long. A wombat mother's pouch is lined with moist skin and provides a constantly warm environment for the growing joey. An orphan can lose water through the skin and become dehydrated, so Dan's body needs to be kept lubricated. He's more robust than little Ash and is already inquisitive. The joeys need to be fed on special low-lactose milk. Marsupial milk has a much higher protein and fat content than cow's milk. Near Narantapu National Park in Tasmania, there are several bare-nosed wombat mothers with young joeys, keeping them hidden from view. Winnie has a 4-month-old youngster in her pouch, which won't emerge for a while yet. She doesn't venture far from her burrow to forage. A key feature of bare-nosed wombat life is their tendency to move between different burrows in their home ranges, often grabbing the nearest one when they need to rest. But females prefer to stay in the same burrow when they have small pouch young. So Winnie sticks close to home to make sure that no other wombats drop by. And the best defence is occupation. In South Australia, hairy-nosed wombat Birry comes out of the burrow in search of his potential mating partner, Sylvie. This time, Sylvie's waiting for him. And she lets him sniff her. But only for a moment, before the chasing ritual begins again. But now, Sylvie's tactics have changed. She seems more receptive. She may have come into estrus and be ready for him to mate her. She returns to sniff Birry. Then breaks away for the burrow. And this time, she waits for him to follow her in. Finally, they end up in the burrow together. Once Birry has mated Sylvie, it will be the end of their association. Even if mating has been successful, he won't be involved in the rearing of his joey. Back at the Wombat Sanctuary in Cooma, New South Wales, and 3 weeks after they were found, Ash and Dan have grown. Ash has put on 250 grams, and it's the first time that the two orphan joeys have been put together. At 4 and nearly 5 months, both are still much too young to be out of the pouch. And the younger, Ash, is less able to move out of her protective covers. But Dan is beginning to move around. Even if that means sitting on his pouch mate. Both are still hairless, but Dan's skin is darkening where his fur is coming in. His eyes are also opening to a fuller shape. Ash's whiskers are already visible. These grow by 6 weeks in the pouch. Once fully grown, she'll have several sets of whiskers around her mouth and eyes and under her chin. She's also been found to have a fractured leg, most likely an injury from the accident that killed her mother. She'll need to wear a tiny cast for the next few weeks. The only way of ensuring Ash and Dan's survival is by recreating the pouch environment as closely as possible. They still can't be exposed to heat or much light, and their pouch temperature needs to be kept steady at around 36 degrees, close to human body temperature. In Tasmania, Winnie's joey is reaching the 6-month mark and is no longer hidden from view. Even though her pouch has expanded, the joey is now running out of space. The muscle around the pouch opening can no longer close. So the joey's feet are hanging out. Wombat joeys will either lie hunched over so that the feet protrude from the opening, or on their front looking out. The joey will start to investigate grass from the comfort of its protective hammock, while still feeding from the two teats inside the pouch. It's hard for Winnie to keep up her usual activity levels with such a heavy load. But she's got to maintain her burrow. She needs to line it with vegetation, as this is where her joey will spend its early days out of the pouch. In Cooma, in New South Wales, rescued babies Ash and Dan are still tucked up warmly inside. They're now around 5.5 and 6 months old. Dan is at the age when he might peep out of his mother's pouch. By the 6th month, he has fine fur covering much of his body. Ash's is beginning to come in too. They only need feeding every 4 hours now. And while they're still too young to go out, they're beginning to explore. Before her fur grows, Ash's tail is clearly visible. This gets tucked right down once the wombat is fully grown. They still both have huge ears. And their noses, which give them their name, bare-nosed, are still pink, but becoming more defined. The nose of a bare-nosed wombat has a covering of thick, bare skin, which should be dry if the wombat is in good health. The young wombats are only awake for half an hour at a time, and after a bout of exploration and play, they're ready for another nap. A joey leaves its mum's pouch permanently at around 9 months. It's kept in the burrow until it weighs at least 6.5 kilos. Before that, it's too vulnerable to potential predators. In Narrantapoo National Park in Tasmania, several joeys are now out and about on the pasture. This is the at-heel stage. A joey may stay with its mother in and out of the burrow for up to another 8 to 10 months, until it's fully independent. An at-heel joey now eats plenty of grass, but will continue to suckle from its mum until it's about 15 months old. The young wombat's digestive system has to adjust to the tough, fibrous grass. So it eats dirt or mum's scats to establish the right plant-digesting bacteria in its gut. During this stage, the joey is still dependent on its mum, both for guidance and protection. sticks closely to her heels as she moves about, often not breaking contact. During the months before weaning, the young wombat spends much of its time in or very near a burrow. These wombats share their rocky burrow in nearby woodland with mice. When the time comes to forage, the mother wombat comes out first. She takes her time, dozing at the entrance. But young joeys can be nervous about coming out. Unlike these sociable white-winged choughs, which are on the hunt for insects. The joey's unsure of them and turns back. Eventually, Mum goes back in to coax him out. She needs to feed. But the joey is still hesitant. After being raised in the dark confines of the burrow, young joeys often startle easily. With such acute senses of both smell and hearing, there are many new sounds and smells to take in, which can frighten them. Finally, he's out and they can head off together. He stays close to Mum's heels and keeps his head down when they have to pass some curious kangaroos with joeys of their own. Nearby, Winnie waits patiently for her joey, Fred, to come out too. It's September and the weather has warmed up. There's good foraging near to the burrow. Fred has changed enormously. 2 months after leaving the pouch, he's put on about 3.5 kilos. He now has thick fur. His skull has broadened out and his snout is less pointed. His ears are more in proportion with his head. At 12 months, these will stop growing completely. He's also very uncertain. Winnie bides her time. When Fred appears, he sticks to Mum. He ducks underneath her frequently while she forages. He still takes milk from her pouch and tries to go underneath her to feed. Her teat can elongate to extend right out of her pouch. As his confidence increases, so does his playfulness. A young wombat will often play with its mum, nip at her and climb on her back. Wherever Winnie goes, Fred follows. He practices climbing over fallen branches and rocks as Mum forages. She may eat soft green moss and bark as well as grasses. And when she decides to call it a day, he's first back inside. At the Wombat Sanctuary in Cooma, New South Wales, Ash and Dan are fatter and stronger. They're finally reaching the age when young wombats might leave their mother's pouches for the first time. At 7 and 7.5 months, the two joeys have fine fur. Once fully grown, their coats will be coarse with thick, bristly hair on their backsides. A wombat may be a slow-moving creature, but these two youngsters can wrestle and play vigorously. But unlike a wild wombat like Fred, they don't have mothers to teach them wombat ways. So everything they learn about wombat behaviour is from each other. A young wombat doesn't usually leave its mother until it's at least 16 kilos. But out on the pasture in Tasmania is one youngster who's only about 9 kilos. He's too small to be on his own. It's likely that he's an orphan, although he's been weaned and is eating grass. The patch of worn fur on his flank is a sign of a skin disease caused by mites called sarcoptic mange. This highly contagious condition is increasingly affecting common wombats. Mites can be introduced into the burrows by dogs or foxes. Infected wombats then pass the mites onto each other. His mother may have died from the same illness, or she may have rejected him if she's in a weakened state herself. But without a mother to defend him from predators, the young wombat is vulnerable. He moves very slowly, and although there's plenty of grass, he doesn't eat much. It may take him longer to feed. Left untreated, his chances of survival are slim. But researchers here in Narrantapoo are starting a treatment program, putting medication into the wombat's burrows. so he'll have a chance of better health as an independent wombat. Between 12 and 15 months after birth, the young wombat is weaned. But Mother and Joey usually stay close for a few more months after weaning. It can take as long as a year for the young wombat to become truly independent and start life on its own. A wombat female won't breed again until this happens, so most will likely only have a joey roughly every 2 years. In the woods near Cooma, New South Wales, not far from where Ash and Dan were found, a mother is out with her at-heel joey. It's cool, dank weather, so they're foraging by day. The joey is at the stage of testing his independence, straying a little further from Mum. Mums with older young at heel will let their youngsters explore, leaving the joeys to make sure they don't get lost. He needs to take care as he's still small enough to be predated by a dog or even a fox. He moves further away as the rain starts to intensify. Meanwhile, Mum takes shelter. Now the joey can't find his mother. He heads for a burrow. But it's not the right one. He makes a panicky dash before he finds the right spot. Mum gives him a reassuring nuzzle, and they shelter from the rain together. Perhaps he'll put off independence for another day. Once independent of its mother, the young wombat must search for a burrow of its own, either by finding an existing one or by getting down to some digging. But sometimes Mum will leave her joey with the burrow and move on herself. Researchers see this as a maternal investment, as it provides a starter home for a young wombat who might otherwise find it hard to establish a burrow of its own. By the time a young wombat is 2 years old, it weighs about 21 kilos. Its face and head are broad. It's found a home range and is sexually mature, ready to start the cycle again. In Cooma, New South Wales, orphan wombats Ash and Dan are finally big enough to go outside. At 10 and 10.5 months, they're still too small to be released into the wild. But they're getting some practice in for when they need to create burrows of their own. Digging seems to come naturally to Ash, even if Dan is butting in. The two Joeys are now at the stage when they would be at heel with their mothers. It's an exciting new world to explore, but like any other at-heel Joeys, they instinctively stick close to their surrogate mum, as well as to each other. They won't be ready to go free until they're between 20 and 25 kilos, large enough to fend for themselves. But when the time comes, Ash and Dan will be released together to start their lives as adult wombats. Being together means it's less likely they'll have any trouble leaving the humans who've raised them. As they reach sexual maturity, Ash and Dan will eventually move apart to become solitary. But there's even a chance that in the future they could breed together and create another generation of wombats. They've come so far already and have survived through the most vulnerable and extraordinary first year of the Joey's journey.
About 1,000 kilometers north of Tokyo lies Japan's second biggest island, Hokkaido, about twice the size of Switzerland. Its northeast tip is the Shiretoko Peninsula. According to the Ainu, Hokkaido's indigenous people, one meaning of Shiretoko is the end of the world. In autumn, autumn, the salmon migrate from the Pacific Ocean to spawn in its rivers. Most are humpback salmon. They don't arrive unnoticed. The brown bears are looking forward to their best time of year. Many salmon swim 100 kilometers, only to end in a bear's jaws. This will build a healthy layer of fat. Skin and innards are popular. But eggs are the real delicacy. As autumn advances, the forest starts to glow. Since 1964, the peninsula has been a protected national park. In 2005, it won UNESCO World Natural Heritage status. Further inland, a female brown bear is hunting. In fact, she's late getting started. Most of the salmon are long gone. Brown bears are Japan's biggest land animals. The female is not alone. She keeps her two cubs close. They're part of the world's densest brown bear population. She tirelessly pursues the fish. She's doing her best, but there's not much time. Autumn is coming to its end. It's the crucial time for building up reserves. Luckily, brown bears aren't picky eaters. They'll digest almost anything: nuts, berries, roots, or leaves. To have the best chance of surviving a tough Hokkaido winter. Where the temperatures drop as low as -15 Celsius. But in February, the coldest time of the year, the gift which will sustain life here reaches these shores from the north. First, it's just a few fragments. Then more and more. Until masses of pack ice move towards the peninsula. The ice has come a long way from the north, more than 1,000 kilometers from the Sea of Okhotsk. Soon the ice meets the shore and the fragments are pressed together. The fox has to be careful when exploring. This could be dangerous. He has to find his way onto solid ground again. There are still a few mild, bright days. And then winter hits hard. It's a tough time now. A Sika stag, exhausted from autumn combats with rival males, can hardly stay on its feet. A younger male still has the strength it needs. To reach the top leaves. It'll gain enough energy to defy the freezing cold and keep at full stretch. Not so the old bull. By the morning, he's dead. The end for one, life for others. The crow's powerful beak makes short work of the hide. And that does the fox a big service. The stag's remains will feed the fox for weeks. It'll save his life. You have to take your chances here on Shiritoko if you want to see next spring. The coast is starting to look typically Arctic, along with strange sounds to match. The Ainu say the ice is weeping. The real explanation is more prosaic. the sound of ice floes rubbing against each other. Visitors from Siberia on the way to Shiratoko. Stella's sea eagles. These magnificent raptors have 2-meter wingspans. They spend their summers in Russia's Far East, but they prefer the comparatively mild winters of Japan. The global population of Stella's sea eagles is just 8,000. A third of them winter on Hokkaido. Here they find the food that's now missing in the north. As the sun sets, Shiratoko reveals another wonder. This is the perfect place to observe the night sky. Light pollution is almost unknown here. Hokkaido is far less populated than the rest of Japan. It takes the pale light of the moon to dampen the spectacle. And to rouse another Shiratoko resident. One of Japan's rarest birds. A Blakiston's fish owl. A few hundred survive in Russia, China, and northern Japan. Hokkaido has no more than 160. This fish owl is on the lookout for prey. His sharp eyes will catch a tiny movement in the water. A prize for this male. Which he may have to defend. But the owl's focus is elsewhere. On a potential partner. And a fish could be a courting gift. Any successful pairing improves the species' chances. Their wooing is disturbed. Now saving the prey is the priority. It's not the fox's night. Early next morning, fishermen depart before dawn. The freezing waters off Shiretoko are Japan's richest. Shipboard life sub-zero is harsh, but it's worth it. Pacific pollock is a deep-sea fish, except when it comes up to spawn. In some years, 2,000 sea eagles gather on the ice field. They can be patient. They know what's on the way. When fishers pull in their nets, something always gets lost. Small fry and unwanted bycatch is thrown overboard. A wintry gift on the ice for the eagles. Stella's sea eagles are the largest of their kind and among the most powerful birds of prey on Earth, with the sharpest eyes and claws. But power fuels competition. Not much time to enjoy this catch. These fights are not about territory, but food. Their smaller relative, a white-tailed eagle, looks on. It's not scared to steal some food, just waiting for its chance. This could be it. But competition from cheeky cousins must not be tolerated. The smaller white tail is chased away. Further out on the pack ice, a ribbon seal rests. In the spring, she will give birth here. For now, the male will have to be patient. She shows no interest in him. The ice floes will stay 2 months, a safe refuge for the seal. Beneath the ice, a wonderland awaits. In places, it's 20 meters thick. Here live aliens. A sea spider. A lion's mane jellyfish. Some have a diameter of 2 meters. Others light up like LEDs. Comb jellyfish use beating strips of cilia to move forward. This Arctic comb jellyfish catches its prey with tentacles longer than its body. Each one shoots out when needed to hunt. A sea butterfly. A snail with wings. Perhaps the most wonderful is this one. A cleone. Cleones are also related to snails. This one looks like an angel, but it has a dark side. Its eyesight is poor. It compensates with scent receptors that track its prey. A determined predator stalks a sea butterfly. Its insides sucked out. The victim is eaten alive. escape these tentacles. Beneath or above the ice, it's eat or be eaten. The end of March. The temperatures creep above freezing. A great transformation is starting. Microscopic algae turn the ice brown. As spring sunshine brings the phytoplankton to life. But this couldn't happen without iron, locked in the ice and now set free. Thus nourished, the microscopic algae flourish in myriad forms. They attract the next link in the chain of life, krill. These little shrimps live off plankton. And now they reproduce explosively in turn. The iron and other nutrients brought by the ice from hundreds of miles away are the gift of life to the Sea of Shiritoko. This is the secret of Japan's wild north. After monochrome months, Shiritoko bursts into color. Brown bears wake from hibernation. The Ainu know them as gods of the mountains, lords of the other creatures. The she-bear carefully checks the surroundings. No immediate danger. Time to play. Perfect training for muscle and motor skills. The bond between mother and cubs is the one lasting attachment among bears. Youngsters usually stay with their mothers till their 3rd year. Time to learn all they need to know to survive in the forests of Hokkaido. Orcas come to this coast from the south. The largest members of the dolphin family are at the top of the food chain. They're not looking for swarms of tiny krill. They're after Pacific herring. Shiratoko has other visitors from the southern oceans. Short-tailed shearwaters. They've come from their breeding grounds in Australia. They've flown 10,000 kilometers to get here. More than 100,000 of them. They too are here for food. Shearwaters aren't only astounding long-distance flyers. When they stop, they're just as at home under the sea. Powerful wings and webbed feet propel them down. Eating mainly krill, but also other crustaceans and small fish. Deep as 50 meters. After all the effort, the birds have to rest. Not so easy when everyone has the same idea. Finally, they all settle down, and peace descends. But then, a whale. A fin whale, to be precise. This marine mammal can measure more than 20 meters. The shearwaters are not on the whale's menu. They eat krill. Fin whales are the second biggest creatures on Earth. Males weigh up to 60 tons. That's more than 3 buses. Whales come to Shiratoko's coasts in spring and summer when krill are abundant. Sometimes they gather in large groups with dozens of animals. This is a very rare sight. Each whale needs about 2 tons of krill a day. Synchronized swimming and eating come naturally. Shearwaters don't appreciate the company. From above, their evasive action is like a firework display. And all of this depends on the winter ice. Summer nears its peak. For seekers, a time of ease. Plenty for all. A chance to play. A she-bear with her cubs is following the deer. Unconcerned for now, the seekers keep a careful eye on the visitors. Healthy seekers are safe from the bears. And they know that perfectly well. Summer is in evidence offshore too. In just a few weeks, brown algae grow to veritable undersea forests. They're perfect hiding places for sea creatures. And they're nurseries too. An intimidating stare and scary teeth. But it's only a bearing wolffish, spring cleaning. Or maybe he isn't so harmless. Ask a horsehair crab. The sandy seabed is home to a truly remarkable creature, the Japanese scallop. Many eye it greedily, and a starfish reaches out to attack. But these are jumping scallops. By expelling a jet of water, they leap forwards. Scientists reckon this colony of 300,000 is the world's biggest. Some of them inevitably fall victim to the starfish and cresthead flounder. The flounder wait till the starfish have prized open the shells. Then the banquet can begin. The commotion attracts a North Pacific giant octopus. The world's biggest octopus has tentacles up to 5 meters long. But enough scallops survive to spawn the next generation. The abundance of the seas nourishes the land too. A vixen has her territory not far from the fishing village. She's happy to live close to humans. Perfectly relaxed, she scans the beach for anything edible. Hers is an olfactory universe, her sense of smell 400 times more sensitive than a human's. The food is not for her. Her pups are hungry. Fresh-caught baby food. They never have enough. An old boat hut is home. Vixen never rests. And she's back with another serving. You shouldn't really play with food, but an octopus tentacle is made for a tug of war. The fox family survives thanks to the Sea of Shiretoko. And sometimes the same sea, nurtured by ice, brings an especially generous gift. The brown bears have caught a seductive scent. Drawing them irresistibly. The remains of a stranded whale. We've come full circle. Nutrients sealed in the ice fed the algae and krill that were consumed by the whale that is now in the bear's stomachs and will eventually fertilize Shiretoko's forests. It's this interdependence of land and sea that makes the peninsula so special, its fauna so bountiful. But climate change now threatens to wreck the delicate balance. Over 40 years, the pack ice from the Sea of Okhotsk has lessened by 25%. We can only hope that Hokkaido's wildlife will cope with this change. So Japan's wild north and its unique inhabitants will be saved for future generations.
連れてって